The Illuminate Arts and Faith Conference in Chattanooga, Tennessee wants to help you find your tribe. Do you get way too excited about quoting Wendell Berry or C.S. Lewis in conversations with coworkers? Does your Spotify playlist include hymns, a little jazz, and a whole lot of Andrew Peterson? Join your tribe at Illuminate March 31 and April 1 for education and inspiration from speakers Russ Ramsey, Douglas McKelvey, John Hendricks, and others. Find a complete list of session topics and ticket information at southern.edu/illuminate.
In 2024, I set out to meet as many poets as I could and spend an hour with each one. I got more than I bargained for, more insight, more clarity, more hope. It's proved to be one of the richest highlights of my life. 17 writers, 17 deeply human conversations that made me sit up and pay attention. Franz Kafka once said, if the book we're reading doesn't wake us up with a blow to the head, what are we reading for? A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. And that's what I hope this new book will do. I hope it wakes us up, my friends. I hope these conversations will be the catalyst for something to be reawakened, re-enchanted, and reinvigorated. It's called An Axe for the Frozen Sea, Conversations with Poets About What Matters Most. I'm Ben Palpin, and I hope you'll come and listen in as I spend a little time with poets like Lucy Shaw, Malcolm Guite, Dana Gioia, and Lee Young Lee. Pull up a chair at the table as we dig into what it means to write well and to live well. An Axe for the Frozen Sea is now available from Rabbit Room Press. Visit the store at rabbitroom.com, or better yet, ask about it at your favorite bookseller.
In my life and the things I see, beauty is revealed in pain. So if you're not willing to risk going headlong into the pain, I just don't think you're going to find something beautiful.
Welcome to the Habit Podcast, conversations with writers about writing. I'm Jonathan Rogers, your host. If you've listened to country music in the last 30 years, you've heard songs written by Tom Douglas. They include I Run to You, Drunk Girl, The House That Built Me, and Little Rock, the one sung by Colin Ray, not the one by Reba McEntire. He's a Nashville legend and a member of the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. He recently released a movie, a one-man show called Love, Tom, A Letter of Hope to a Desperate World. It's a beautiful, wise, and honest meditation on the creative process. You can stream it on Paramount Plus. Tom Douglas, I'm really happy to have you on the Habit Podcast today.
I am so happy to be on the podcast with you guys. I'm a huge fan of what you all are doing, and so thank you for having me.
Well, man, I'm such a fan of what you do. I saw your one-man show last night, Love, Tom. The subtitle, A Letter of Hope to a Desperate World.
Right.
Man, I get so many things I want to talk about here. The movie's only 50 minutes long, and I want to talk for a few hours about it, but we'll do the best we can. And I'll try not to spoil everything in the thing. But this is it's your response to a letter that you got from another songwriter. I assume a younger songwriter, but in any case, somebody says, "What am I doing here? What is the point of all this?" And so you, over the course of 50-something minutes, answer that question.
Yeah, it started when I was honored to be inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2014. And they give you literally 12 minutes for your acceptance speech.
Okay.
And as Abraham Lincoln said, if you want me to give a long speech, I can do it right now. If you want a short speech, it's going to take me a while. Yeah. So I worked on it for months. And I didn't want it just to be thank this person, thank that person. I don't know why. It just seems so cliche, I guess, and I really hate cliches. So I don't know exactly what the impetus was, but in any event, I just thought, well, here'd be a pretty cool device, which would be, I could just kind of answer a letter, like almost at the same time. I got a letter from a friend, a young songwriter, who's desperate. Why am I doing this? What is the point? And I know he was looking at me thinking, gosh, you've got it made. You've never had any problems. I'll never aspire to I'll never achieve that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pull the veil back and demystify the creative process, which is, as you know, and everybody that's listening, is mind-achingly, heartbreakingly difficult. It is not for the faint of heart. And then I was kind of looking for a literary device that might work within the letter. And I thought, well, the creative process is, we're really just drifting and drafting off what God has done from the first, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created.
Yeah.
And so everything we're doing is we're building upon that initial creation. It's almost like there's a creative pool somewhere and we're dipping our toe in that and we're building off that, what God.
Yeah.
So the letter and the movie is really, it's, I guess, a couple layers. One is the letter, but overlaid over the letter is the 7 days of creation.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. So it's subtle, but and some things that we do, as a writer, there's some things we do that are not readily apparent to the listener or to the viewer, but it's a framework that helps us get through the work. So that really was, once I overlaid that over the letter, that's the way songs develop. In the beginning you have chaos, and then you've got land, and then you've got, the birds singing a song over the expanse. It's not a literal 7-day amplification of the creative process, but it's there.
All right, I'm going to watch it again. Well, actually, I've got tickets to see you do it live soon, so I'll be paying attention.
You're a glutton for punishment.
So when I sat down to watch this movie, I knew to expect good advice. I know enough about your career and your life and your approach to the world to know I was going to get some good writing advice. But, I think what impressed me so much was the extent to which you demonstrate that the issues around writing are the issues around life, and that your work grows out of your life, your suffering. And I'm hoping before this conversation is over that we'll be talking about not just your suffering, but your joys that has grown out of, that we'll get to that when we get to it. But, there's so much hurt, so much beauty that you talk about. And I love, I'd never heard this song that's the first song in the movie. Van Gogh, I think, is the title of the song. And man, it if you don't mind me reading your stanza back to you. This is the chorus. You're not crazy if it hurts and makes you cry. Draw the beauty from your pain. Life is just too beautiful to put into a frame. Maybe that's the reason why Van Gogh went insane. And I love that juxtaposition of the beauty and the pain.
Yeah.
And that acknowledgement that doing creative work, it can grow out of pain, and that's so much of what you're talking about in this movie is redeeming that brokenness.
Yeah.
But also the work itself can cause plenty of pain.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I guess your point is, when we say you're not crazy if it hurts, if it hurts and makes you cry, you're talking about the work itself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is going to almost destroy you. And I don't, as I look back now, I've written 2,700 songs, and maybe 2,500 of them will never see the light of day. And 2,000 of the 2,700 are honestly terrible. I mean, they're just awful. I'm not being.
I believe you.
They're like, at the time I did it, I thought this is the greatest song I've ever written. Only 2 days later to think I must have been high on something. I can't imagine why I even approached that. But I'm 69 years old, so I can make statements that I can't really back up. But I don't think anything beautiful comes from anywhere but something painful and broken. Now, I can't, again, you're smarter than I am, but I'm just telling you, in my life and the things I see, beauty is revealed in pain. So if you're not willing to risk going headlong into the pain, I just don't think you're going to find something beautiful. Oh. I think that's life comes from death. Theologically, there just ain't no other way around it.
Yeah.
I think, ever since the Garden of Eden, it's manifested itself as we see it working out, which is real heartache, real pain. And
the seed has to fall to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Something has to die for something to live. Yeah. So
I'm interested in this idea of you writing. You, who is, you're as well known as anybody for writing great songs. Those 2,000 bad songs you wrote, which again, I believe you when you say you're not just poor mouth, and I know what it's like. I've talked to enough songwriters to know you all have to write a lot of bad songs to get a few good ones. I also know that if somebody had said, "Hey, just write the 200 good songs," that wouldn't have worked.
Doesn't work.
The seed has to fall to the ground and die. And the good stuff, you get to the good stuff by doing the bad stuff.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of my partners in this movie about doing a podcast, just because I know that the world needs another podcast. But things that I find that I do that I really want to do that actually work have nothing to do with the fact of, will this be a good idea commercially? That has honestly never worked for me. The things that have worked for me are, am I supposed to do this? Even though I have, a really strong inclination, this is going to end up commercially or, financially unviable. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about this podcast. So I want to do a podcast called Spectacular Failure, where I want to talk to really famous people, but the only people that that we will be willing to talk to are those that are willing to expose their vulnerability and that crossroads where they stood, where they could have gone left, they could have gone right, but they went straight headlong into the failure. And, that's the road less traveled, and, and that's everything. And that's the reason why that we're interested in talking to them.
I hope you do that podcast. I'd listen. Now,
I want to learn about that.
And you probably know podcasting is the fast track to fame and riches. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's all I'm about.
Well, you say the trying to guess what's going to be commercial doesn't work. It doesn't work because, by the time it takes a while for a song or a book or anything to make it into the world. And by the time what seems commercially viable, and as you're chasing that, you'll never catch up.
You're right. Absolutely.
But anyway, the second, we're still on the Van Gogh. So we're still on the first 2 minutes of the movie. So we need to move on. I know, but I got to talk about that second verse, because it just blew me away. You say you offer up your best and it doesn't sell, cuts you to the bone and hurts like hell. And then you say, but promise me you'll still give your fragile heart.
Yeah.
Man, and that's hard to do. And I wish I needed that song in 2010. I don't know where it was in 2010, but wow. And I wrote the Charlatan's Boy, a book that I thought that's the best I can do. And I thought it was going to be a I thought it was going to be kind of a breakout book or whatever. And then just nobody bought it. You couldn't find it, and you couldn't find it in the stores. And it was just so heartbreaking. And I had to come to terms with, ultimately, I had to have my feelings hurt for a while. Then I had to say, why is it so important to me that people I don't know admire me?
Right.
And why is it so important for me to be loved by people who I can't love back when I'm surrounded by people who do love me?
Wow.
And who love this book that I wrote. And this book that I'm proud of. And I had to reach a point where I was like, hey, I'm just glad I wrote this book. And the fact that it wasn't a commercial success that's the least of my worries.
Yeah. Well, that's not easy to work your way through. Everything you're saying is absolutely right on. And I know that I suspect that you've surrounded yourself usually with community of people that can help you process that, not in isolation, but
right.
Just talk about what you're feeling and help people, your buddies and your family help you process it, because there's no way not to take it personally.
Yeah.
You're not going to take it personally. Don't do it. It's like, hey, guess what? They are rejecting you to a degree. And that really does hurt, but that's not ultimately defining. The thing that we know is some weird thing could happen and somebody could read the book and it could, it could be made into a blockbuster movie, starting production June 1st. We want to put time limits on everything that, that's got, a time date stamp, and it just doesn't.
Yeah. But also you have to be all right with the likelihood that that's not going to happen either.
That's I just have had to simplify everything I do down to this. I create and I share.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then once I've shared it, I hope you like it. If you don't, guess what? I'm going to go back and create again. So that's we have to detach ourselves from the outcome and all those things, which, are kind of irritate you when people say them, but it's the truth. It's when we get in trouble is when we get too attached to, our formula for what is success and what's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Something about that reminds me of something you say, this is not, I'm telling the story not because it's the best story, but it's because the story I know best.
Yeah.
And all you can give is what you've got to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, nobody's mad at you for not being able to give what you can't give.
That's true. Yeah. We get frustrated with ourselves, but I'm not Ernest Hemingway. I'm not C.S. Lewis. I'm not John Steinbeck. I'm not Steven Spielberg, but I do have a thing that I have tried to, find over the years and refine it and define it. And as I have done that, I have had more traction, from the world. If I'm like, hey man, I know this is pretty specific. It's pistachio with a little rum raisin, and I know it's not for everybody, but there are a few people that really dig that, and I'm good for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not for everybody.
Yeah. All right. We got to keep moving. I want to talk about your very complicated relationship with your dad, which is, such an important part of your story. If you don't mind, you don't mind, you just put it in a movie, so you can talk to me about it.
Right.
But I've just been thinking about, he was the person who introduced you to, the whole idea that people do music. Your dad was a music fan. He introduced you to the Beatles, got you a guitar, encouraged you to play the bass instead, all this kind of stuff. And you couldn't be doing what you are doing without him and without his encouragement.
Yeah.
And yet there was also some hurt there that I could imagine situations in which that kind of hurt would stunt somebody's development.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I loved and still love my father. He was, wonderfully complicated, like most of us are.
Yeah.
And, empathy is something that I have been interested in the latter part of my life. When you kind of understand why somebody is like they are, then all of a sudden, it's a whole lot easier to have a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
So over time, I started to really understand my father's upbringing. And I think my father was, had certainly a predisposition towards real clinical depression and anxiety his whole life. And he managed it for a good bit of the time. At times it didn't. He broke his arm when I was 10 and got addicted to, the modern day equivalent of opioids. And that was a roller coaster ride for a number of years. And then he really recovered. And, I say in the movie, and then he recovered until he didn't. And he retired from U.S. Steel after a 45-year career in 1975. And I was graduated from college, and my sister was getting married, and everything that, a large part of my father's identity was his job. And when that was taken away, it was like, well, who am I now? And, my mother actually had a very successful interior decorating business. And my father, once again, he kind of slipped back into, addiction. And, I just remember I would go with him to a lot of appointments. And they were handing out, prescription medication to my father and millions of other Americans, just like it was candy. And so it's just, uppers and downers. And anyway, that started kind of almost a 20-year, or I guess 17-year roller coaster ride again of addiction and nursing homes and everything else. But during that time, as I look back, and my father couldn't live with my mother really anymore, and I was in Dallas at that time as a real estate broker. And it was a very difficult time. I was newly married, and I was starting over a new career as a real estate broker.
Because you had moved to Nashville to make it as a songwriter.
Yeah, I'm telling my story in a very circuitous manner, but I came to Nashville in 1980 and was here from 80 to 84 to pursue music, songwriting, and got nothing going. It was just devastating. Nashville, like LA or New York, man, if you're on the outside looking in, it is a desperate place to be. And so I was here for 4 years, and my father was living with me for part of that time, and that was complicated. I said, I gotta clear the deck. So I moved to Dallas and left music forever and reinvented myself as a real estate broker and got married. My dad moved with me. And he was in and out of nursing homes and hospitals and everything. 13-year kind of roller coaster ride. And it was very difficult. But honestly, as I look back, maybe the greatest time of my life were those 13 years where I really, had care for my father. It was terribly beautiful, terribly painful, and terribly beautiful all at the same time. But if I hadn't gone through that, I would not be writing songs today. It was in the movie, I tell it was probably 1990 or 91, something like that. And occasionally I would pick my father up from the nursing home and take him around with me on my sales calls in the real estate business. And I was cold calling a shopping center, and I was having this conversation with some tenants. At the same time, I was really arguing with God. I said, God, I'm 39. I'm jaded, cynical, and incredibly disappointed with my pathetic life. And God said, you've been worshiping the creation instead of me, the creator. How's that working out? And I really, for a moment, I repented of my idolatry. And I kind of got somehow the gift of creativity back. I just said, I don't want everything that goes with it. I really, what I want is a relationship with you, God. And I just want to enjoy the gift of music again. And slowly over time, it's like an iceberg melting. My heart kind of melted and softened, and I started just enjoying the gift of creativity again. And just kind of slowly started writing some songs. I didn't write songs for 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, I just I don't ever want to do that again.
Can you tell the story about when you came into the nursing home, your dad's room in the nursing home, and he was listening to your, was it Little Rock that he was listening to?
Yes, right.
Amazing. And by the way, I need to clarify, we're talking about not Reba McEntire's Little Rock.
Right.
You know, when I first heard about you from mutual friends, it was like, he's the guy who wrote Little Rock. And I thought, okay, you know, everybody's got to make a living, but I didn't know we were talking about.
Right. Colin Ray's Little Rock.
Colin Ray's Little Rock.
Yeah. That Little Rock is upbeat and bouncy and actually makes you feel good. Mine makes you want to throw yourself out the third floor window. Yeah.
I think I think the other one makes you bouncy and feel good about divorce, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true.
and so I was so relieved when I found out that wasn't the Little Rock we were talking about.
Wow.
But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's probably 1992, I guess. And I had, I'd go to visit my father frequently. And usually when I'd go see him in his nursing home, it was like a dungeon, a comatose dungeon where it smelled bad, and he had on, soup stained pajama tops and terrible slippers, and he wouldn't even speak. He'd just lay on his bed and had his eyes closed, and I'd just sit there angry, just pissed off. Honestly, it's like, man, this is not the way that I thought it was going to end up. I went in another, like the next week, and I go in, and it was, the lights were on, the shades were pulled. My father had on a clean white shirt and sweatpants and white tennis shoes. And my father was listening to a song that I'd written, which was Little Rock. I just demoed the song, and he said, I love this song. And really the first thing my father said to me that made any sense in about 19 years was, hey, Tommy, would you like a piece of chewing gum? My father had dentures, and he loved free dent chewing gum. So he was always chewing gum. So my father and I shared, the reason why I still like gum is my father and I shared some gum and listened to a little music.
Yeah.
It was miraculous. Honestly, I don't say that. I know there's all kind of miracles that happen, but that was a living, breathing, honest to goodness. He went from dead to alive.
Yeah.
And and then he cancer got him in the end, but he was restored the last 3 years of his life. And
so that wasn't a one-time thing. He was
good from that moment forward.
Is that right?
And I don't know. I mean, somebody would say, well, they finally got the medication right, or I don't know. I'm telling you, he was dead and he wasn't.
And then Little Rock is the song that kind of brought you back to Nashville, and you've kind of no looking back since then, so to speak. I guess you look back some, but
I look back about 4 times an hour. So
I get that. Yeah. Okay. I misspoke, but hey, is it a coincidence that Little Rock is halfway between Dallas and Nashville?
You know what? Of all the people have asked me lots of questions about that, that's the first time somebody said that. I think that is, I'm going to give you a Diet Dr. Pepper. I think you're right.
Because it was your sort of bridge back.
Well, the truth is, at the time that I kind of regained my creative cycle, just to show you the crazy way our minds work, I was working for Walmart, doing some work for Walmart. Bill Clinton was running for president.
Okay.
My father was, recovering constantly from some addiction, and felt like I was always starting over. By that time, I was probably 40. And I was like, I am constantly starting over. Everybody else around me is on their second and third promotion and has a nice house. I was renting, and I liked real estate, but I wasn't really good at real estate. I worked with some amazing real estate brokers, and I was very, very average. But you take all that combination of those factors, and I said, well, why don't I, one morning, I was still just fooling around with music. I said, why don't I just try to tell a story that interests me, that I like? And I said, all right, I got a recovering alcoholic who was my father, metaphorically. I'm selling VCRs, which nobody in your audience even knows what those are. I'm selling VCRs in a Walmart in Little Rock.
Yeah.
And the reason why Little Rock was because Bill Clinton was running for president, and every article in the world was Bill Clinton, the boy from Little Rock, is on the road. And I was like, all right, there's my protagonist and there's my story.
Well, my theory was that you were looking at the map toward Nashville and saw Little Rock, but that really
I like my theory. I like your story better.
But man, that is, I can't remember if it's the first line or the second line of the song. I'm selling VCRs in Arkansas in a Walmart or something like that. Now I'm butchering it probably, but the specificity of that, by the way, I just love it.
It's well, in songwriting, the more specific that you can get, the smaller you can make it, the more universal it becomes.
It sounds like the kind of line that people are probably teaching in songwriting classes over at Belmont.
they might be.
Or in KSU.
They might say, don't do that.
It is funny because it is a little counterintuitive. Yeah. This idea that the more specific you get, the more concrete you get, the more universal it is. But Stephen Sondheim, maybe the greatest lyricist, one of the great songwriters ever in America, he says God is in the details. So he says, fill your songs with sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, colors, and motion. Like if you're going to say, I'm going to go to the beach, you wouldn't say that. What you would say is, I got a rusted red Corvette with the windows down, and she's got coconut suntan oil on, and the windows down, the radio's, in the breeze, and she's got cheap pink sunglasses on. That's how you would say I'm going to the beach. So anyway, it's easier said than done, I suppose. Well, I'm not quite done with your dad listening to that song in the nursing home room. Because I think about the way that song was a blessing to him.
Yeah.
And that was also a father's blessing on a son.
Yeah.
And a father saying, go. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm pop psychologizing this, but it feels like something was happening there that gave you. Did you feel like you were getting permission to go do this, or? Well, yeah,
it was the creative process, happens, and it's like floors of an elevator of an office building. You're kind of moving up and you're moving down. I moved up a couple of floors when I sat down that time, and I said, I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'm just going to tell a story. I like stories. And I don't even think I realized it at the time, but the song is all about my father. Mm-hmm. And it's weird how it still can hit me at times. Mm-hmm. But so, yeah, I mean, I think the song is just about trying to find that line in the sand, drawing it and saying, I am not going back this time. And I mean, it's a song about starting over. I mean, that's just the essence of the song. It's, the indomitable human spirit that just keeps trying. You can't quit. And that's what this guy's tried a million times to quit drinking. And, the protagonist in the song, And he can't. I mean, he's left his family. He's just trying to reinvent himself somewhere. He's got a decent job. He's been 19 days without a drink. And he's like, I think I've done it. I mean, that's just the way I feel. It's, Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain. It's probably going to roll back again. Maybe one of those days it'll stick up there.
Yeah. Wow. You
got to love pushing the ball up the mountain. You got to love that. And then get the fact if it rolls down or sticks up there.
Well, that brings me to another thing that I really resonated with, or that resonated with me. I'm not sure how you say that. But you talk about that you have to steer a course or live in a tension. I can't remember the exact way you put it, but between apathy on the one hand and just what's on the other hand, anxiety. This you call it the rat on your shoulder, telling you that you're never gonna do this. You're never, in terms of creative work, right? And I think you say the rat never dies.
Yeah.
And that's kind of Sisyphean. The fact that there's no running the rat off permanently.
Yeah. Well, I've read a lot of books on creativity and writing and, something that you said, sorry, in the intro, I feel like I have been all over the map. I haven't said a direct line yet, so I apologize if this sounds disorganized, but something that you said earlier that, and now I forgot it again. It was, it'll come back to me. Man, my daughter's having a big wedding party this weekend and an engagement party. And I think I'm completely stressed out about that. But you said something that was, anyway, I'll think of it. But yeah, about the rat. Oh, sorry. The reason why I wrote the movie is I really, honestly, again, you'll think, no, he's just full of it. I don't really know much about songwriting. I know a lot about songwriters.
Huh.
So this is the whole Love Tom. It's not a letter about songwriting. Honestly, I'm as mystified about that as anybody. The more I learn, the less I know. But I do know what makes writers tick, and that's what I'm interested in. That's kind of my calling. I'm great at diagnosing songwriters. I don't know a damn thing about songwriting, but anyway. So yeah, that rat, the voice, the war. There've been a lot of books about the oppressive spirit of it's that thing that every time you sit down and look at a blank page, that there's a voice somewhere that says, why are you doing this, man? I mean, what are you writing about? It's the perfectionist in us that doesn't want to write anything unless it's going to be perfect. And those are things you just have to work through over time. But yeah, and the other thing is, for years, I think I tried to kill the rat. And then I was always surprised when the rat that kept calling me a fraud would show back up the next day. And finally I realized, hey, the rat ain't going away. The only thing that's going to change is my ability to deal with the rat. And, I use the analogy in the movie about putting him in a mason jar, screwing down a brass lid, walking it out the driveway, loading up a 12 gauge and blowing it into smithereens. That's how you get started. And then he's going to wander back in, but that's okay. That's fine. At least I know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to try to exhaust myself, annihilating the rat. Impossible.
Yeah. Trying to get the rat out of the room long enough to get started.
That's it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, as much as you talk about hurt in when you talk about art making and when you in this movie, really you're talking about love. I mean, the name of this movie is Love, Tom, not Pain, Tom.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And you say that I'm probably in a direct quote, but every song is a love song.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, love has many facets, and there is happy love, sad love, good love, bad love, throw yourself off the Tallahatchie Bridge and, raise your hands on the roller coaster. It is, love's kind of gotten a bad rap. And that when you think of love, you think of, sunshine and rainbows. And, love is far more beautiful and complicated than that. But and I just think in the essence, the songs that we have loved throughout the history of time, somehow you can categorize in one of those folders of a love song: unrequited, brokenhearted, joyous.
I think St. Augustine would agree with you. It's even if it's disordered love, or actually most of the country songs are about disordered love, right?
Yeah,
and all the pop songs and
yes, whether they acknowledge it or not, it still is. It's a love song. The gospel it's a love letter.
Yeah. And creation was an act of love, right? God made the world because he wanted to, because he loved it.
Yeah.
And so it all, this is I did notice that creation was the theme.
Yeah.
Here, I just didn't pick out the 7 days. I feel like I need to defend myself a little bit for not noticing that there was a 7-day creation theme, but that brings it all. I think that does bring it all back around. The truth that we all exist, we exist at all because somebody loved us.
Yeah. It is. The ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate act of love is to take people that are fleeing from you, running in the other direction with their fists clenched, screaming profanities at you and chasing you down. That's a love song right there.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
And
it's really apparent that you love the people you're making this art for. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a joy to do.
Well, Tom, I always end these conversations with a question: who are the writers that make you want to write?
Well, I grew up, the singer-songwriters, the Dylans, the Springsteens, the, Stephen Sondheim, the Hank Williams, Christopherson. I just heard an amazing new album today by this artist that's been around for a while. His name is Gabe Dixon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was just, he's got a brand new live album. It's called Live from Soiled Dove.
Okay.
I guess that's the name of a club. But I can tell, maybe we all can, you can tell when you really love something if it makes you want to go create something. Yeah. And it was so good, it made me want to go write a song. I think we're all looking for points of inspiration, and that's really all we try to provide with our little film, is just to inspire somebody somewhere that's getting ready to give up on their dream to just try one more time. And maybe there's some takeaway from our film that might inspire you to try one more time. And I just wanted to show how flawed and, failing and desperate the process is, so that nobody looks, you look on Instagram or in the culture or TV shows, and everybody looks like they got it made. But you look behind it and it's chaotic, and it's shattering, and it's scattering, and it's if somebody tells you, hey, guess what? That's completely normal. I think, when you're starting out or in the middle of it, you think this is scattering, shattering, and, and I'm cutting myself on broken pieces of glass. Something must be wrong. You'd be like, no. Actually, you're closer than you've ever been.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Yeah. The same process that gives us the disasters gives us the triumphs.
Yes.
It's all the same process.
Yeah. It's just getting through the disaster, just weathering the storm, and not counting yourself out.
Yeah. Well, at the risk of a spoiler, I love the way you end this show, this movie. addressing the person who the letter is addressed to, the person who asked you the question, and saying, I need you to go do the work. I'm paraphrasing. I need you to go do the work because one of these days I'm going to lose my way and I'm going to need you to help me find my way back. Yeah.
You got to, if my song has helped you, then I'm telling you, I'm going to get lost and I'm going to need you to write that song to help me find my way back home. That's why you're here. Yeah. Love. That's how we end it.
Well, Tom Douglas, I'm really grateful for the songs you put out in the world that you've created and then shared that are helping people find their way back. So thanks, man.
Well, thanks for what you're doing, and I appreciate all you guys at the Rabbit Room, and I look forward to hooking up down the road.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Jonathan. Bye-bye.
The Habit Podcast is brought to you by the Rabbit Room, where art nourishes community and community nourishes art. To check out more of our podcasts, visit rabbitroom.com/podcast. Our work at the Rabbit Room would be impossible without the generous support of our membership. If you'd like to learn more about membership at the Rabbit Room, visit rabbitroom.com/member. And thanks for listening.
The Habit Membership is a library of resources for writers by me, Jonathan Rogers. More importantly, The Habit is a hub of community where like-minded writers gather to discuss their work and give each other a little more courage. Find out more at thehabit.co.
If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, consider joining the Rabbit Room membership. Your membership helps sustain this community, funding everything from publishing and podcasts and theater productions to events and programs that support artists who create with a Christ-centered vision. We'd love to have you on board. Learn more at rabbitroom.com/member.